Once upon a time in the land of the free and the home of the brave, America was running on the barter system, tariffs, and excise taxes. No income tax, no payroll deductions. Just a simple concept. You trade, you sell, you pay a small duty, and the rest is yours. The government funded itself primarily through tariffs on imported goods and excise taxes on things like liquor. But let's be real, this system wasn't perfect. It relied on trade and trade relied on peace, which, let's face it, wasn't exactly America's strong suit. Still, it worked, until greed entered the chat. Because when has any government in history ever looked at money and thought, nah, we've got enough? Ah, the whiskey tax of 1791, Alexander Hamilton's brainchild. The idea was simple. Tax whiskey to pay off the national debt from the Revolutionary War. But here's the kicker. Whiskey wasn't just a drink. It was currency for farmers in the West. Taxing their whiskey was like taxing their wallets. So what did the farmers do? They rebelled. And how did the government respond? With federal troops. That's right. They sent the army to crush the rebellion over a tax. Because nothing says land of the free like armed soldiers showing up to collect your liquor money. Meanwhile, Hamilton had another idea. The first bank of the United States. His vision? A central bank to manage the nation's debt and create a stable currency. Sounds noble, doesn't it? But here's the fine print. The bank wasn't exactly public. Private shareholders controlled it, and who were those shareholders? Elite bankers. And Thomas Jefferson and James Madison hated it. Jefferson famously called it a machine for corruption, and honestly, he wasn't wrong. The bank lasted 20 years before Congress let its charter expire in 1811. Why? Because the people, and a lot of politicians, were fed up with a system that seemed to serve the wealthy while everyone else got crumbs. Fast forward to 1816. The government decided to give the whole central bank thing another shot with the second bank of the United States. This time, it was even bigger and bolder, but it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Enter Andrew Jackson, America's fiery seventh president, who made it his mission to destroy the bank. Jackson called it a den of vipers and thieves. And honestly, that might have been the most polite thing he said about it. The bank had way too much power. It could manipulate credit, pick economic winners and losers, and enrich the elite while the average American struggled. Jackson vetoed the bank's recharter in 1832 and moved federal funds to state banks, effectively killing it. But don't celebrate yet. The bankers weren't done, not by a long shot. The Civil War changed everything. Wars cost money, lots of it. To fund the Union Army, the government needed cash fast. Enter the Revenue Act of 1861, which introduced the first federal income tax. Just 3% on incomes over $800. Pocket change by today's standards. But here's the thing. Once you open Pandora's box, it's hard to close it. The income tax was repealed in 1872. But the idea of taxing individuals had already taken root. And when an idea benefits the government's coffers, you can bet it'll make a comeback. Now let's talk about 1913, a year that lives in infamy. Two monumental events happened. The ratification of the 16th Amendment, which made income taxes a permanent fixture, and the creation of the Federal Reserve. Coincidence? Not a chance. Let's unpack this. The Federal Reserve was sold to the public as a way to stabilize the economy and prevent bank panics. Sounds great, right? Except it's not actually federal, and it doesn't have reserves. It's a private banking cartel designed to control the money supply and rake in profits. Here's how it works. The Fed prints money and loans it to the government at interest. The government pays back the loans using your tax dollars. In other words, you're paying interest on money that was created out of thin air. Genius, isn't it? And now we come to 1935. the year payroll taxes were born. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal introduced the Social Security Act, which required workers to pay a portion of their wages directly to the government. Think about it. You don't even get to see your money before Uncle Sam takes his cut. This was the nail in the coffin. Payroll taxes made taxation automatic and unavoidable. It's like a magician pulling a coin out of your ear, except the coin was already yours and the magician is Uncle Sam. So here we are, over a century later, still paying income taxes, payroll taxes, and whatever new taxes they come up with. But here's the million-dollar question. Have we been hoodwinked? Think about it. The government doesn't need your money to fund its operations. It can print as much as it wants. Taxes aren't about revenue, they're about control. By taxing your income, they ensure you're always working for them, whether you like it or not. Let's not kid ourselves. The real winners in this system aren't the taxpayers. It's the bankers and the politicians. Every time the government borrows money, the Federal Reserve and its member banks profit. Every time you pay taxes, you're funding a system designed to keep you in check. And the best part? They've convinced you it's all for your own good. It's patriotic to pay taxes, they say. But is it? Or is it just a way to keep the game rigged? Here's some food for thought. What if we stopped playing along? What if we demanded a system that actually served the people instead of enriching the few? Or is that just wishful thinking in a world where the rules are written by the rich and powerful? Remember this, the greatest trick ever pulled wasn't the creation of taxes or central banks. It was convincing you that they're necessary. If this video made you question everything you thought you knew about taxes and central banks, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to wake up, and subscribe for more truths that'll make you rethink it all. The first step to change is understanding the game. Now it's your move.